Hello, my name is Leonie Trimper and I am President of the Australian Primary Principals Association. I am delighted today to introduce a series of podcasts on reading interventions. The podcasts have been developed as part of a project initiated by the Australian Primary Principals Association called Principals as Literacy Leaders. The project is a pilot that's funded by the Australian Government, Department of Education, Employment and Work Relations as part of the Education Revolution, Improving Our Schools National Action Plan for Literacy and Numeracy. APA works with 3 universities as part of the project: Griffith University, the Australian Catholic University and Edith Cowan University. The podcasts are excellent and I know that you will find them a really useful resource to use with your staff.
There are a number of broad principles that have emanated from the research findings, empirical research findings, particularly over the last 10 years, but really this body of knowledge has been developing for the last 50 years, that direct our attention to what is required for children to learn to read. And this series of podcasts looks at each one of what I like to call the Big Six. These are the basic principles, the basic skills that are required for children to learn to read. Some children do learn to read in a very easy and magical manner, really. They do seem to take it on board very quickly, but the Principals as Literacy Leaders project has been aimed at those children who do not do that. They often come from low SES backgrounds. They tend to come from backgrounds where they're not given all the opportunities to engage with literacy type activities, hearing very good language models, having exposure to books, and they do need a lot more explicit teaching. So that's what this series of podcasts is about. We'll spend 5 minutes on each of those Big Six. The empirical research actually identified 5 broad principles, but I like to underpin all of that with all of those things that happen before children get to school, because that foundational education is where it all starts. So number 1 of the Big Six is oral language development. All of those experiences that children have as they hear their parents talk to them, their wider community talk to them, the exposure they have to books, how much experience they have with parents pointing to words, reading with them, talking to them, developing their vocabulary, developing all of their knowledge about language. That's number 1. Number 2 is phonological awareness, and particularly a subset of phonological awareness, phonemic awareness. Phonological awareness is an awareness of the sounds of the English language. English sounds different from French, very different from Spanish, very different from the Asian languages. So an awareness of what English sounds like, its rhythm, its intonation, the way it goes up and down, that's phonological awareness. Phonemic awareness is an awareness of the separate sounds of language. And unless you have that, you can't relate individual letters to individual sounds. So phonemic awareness is the critical part of phonological awareness, which is number 2. Number 3 is letter sound knowledge, sometimes called the alphabetic principle, sometimes called phonics. Some people think phonics is an F word because phonics has a very bad reputation. It seems to be associated with a decoding element that people don't find relevant to reading for meaning. But we'll explore more about that when we talk about that in detail. So number 3 is letter sound knowledge. Number 4 is vocabulary development. We didn't realise, I don't think until perhaps the National Reading Panel results, how important, how critical vocabulary was to children's academic achievement and in fact achievement across a whole range of things. And children come to school with enormous differences in vocabulary and in language facility. So number 4 is vocabulary development. Number 5 is fluency. I like to say this is where the magic happens, because fluency is where you're putting all of those skills that you've learned. You're aware of the sounds of language. You can relate the letters of our very bizarre English language to those sounds. You've built a broad vocabulary. All of this is happening to the point of automaticity, and you can put those skills together to be a fluent reader. Fluency is absolutely necessary for reading, and so fluency is a very important principle, and that's number 5. Number 6 is what it's all about, comprehension. You require all of those things in order to be able to comprehend. The link between fluency and comprehension is very, very close. They depend upon each other. Reid Lyon talks about the fact that you can't ride a bike slowly. You'll wobble and fall off. And that's what fluency demands and how that leads to comprehension. Unless it's all to the point of automaticity, you're going to wobble around and you just won't be able to perform the function that it's really all about, and that is comprehension. Comprehension is the last and, of course, the critical part of the whole reading process, and that's number 6.